From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
What's up, world? It's the one and only Pop DBIC, the Primetime Capper. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I hope you are feeling the same. It is Monday, the 16th of October, and man, we are just trucking through this year. And man, I'm telling you, we're already pretty much at the end. You know what I mean? In a few days, it'll be the end of the month. So it's just wow. You know what I mean? We're just moving. We're just moving with time. But you know what? It's time to get into it. NFL Week 6 aftermath. Plenty of things that were figured out or we thought might be figured out, great games all day yesterday. And now you guys are starting to figure out that this is a parity league. It's a week-by-week league, and nobody is guaranteed the victory. Doesn't matter if you're coming into the game undefeated and you beat everybody silly, man, you have to go hard every Sunday or you'll go home unhappy camper. I'm telling you, and yesterday was proof in the pudding. We had some fun stats, though. We had actually quarterbacks went 9-1 yesterday if they went under 200 yards in a game. Incredible. And then we had another crazy stat for quarterbacks that went over 300 yards in a game. They went 1-4. So that's just, to me, really nuts because you have 15 games. We got 15 games going this week, right? And it's actually 8 out of the 9. But, that's just nuts. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy that they emphasize passes so much in the NFL. But you see that the guys that threw under 200 yards won, and the guys who threw over 300 yards lost. It's just nuts. Like, it's a crazy stat. And I keep looking at it every year. Every top passer, every top passing quarterback literally is playing on a team that's probably going to be drafted in the top 10 this year. So that's just nuts. But we got some that are still at the top that are going to be in the playoffs and all that good stuff. But let's get to it. And I was talking upsets, and Browns in the 49ers 15-game winning streak with a 19-17 win in Cleveland. It was ugly. It was really ugly, but the Browns prevailed. They were able to get the win with P.J. Walker as the starting quarterback. He was the third quarterback this year that had played for the Browns. They decided to have the veteran go instead of the rookie, which probably was the best choice because he did give them the best opportunity to win the game. They did a great job yesterday. They shut down Brock Purdy, who went 12 for 27 for 125 yards and 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he was sacked 3 times. McCaffrey had to leave the game early, but he only had 43 yards on 11 carries, and most of those yards came on 1 carry when he had a 27-yard scamper in the first drive of the game. Then the passing game was a little stuck yesterday as well, too. But Brandon Ayuk did pretty good for the 4 catches that he had, and he was pretty crucial in getting the team close to winning the game because regardless of how anybody felt about penalties that got called during this game, the 49ers had an opportunity to win the game. And pretty much Brock Purdy play is probably his worst game in the NFL besides when they played in the conference championship last year, and pretty much still was good enough to get his team to the finish line, but they just didn't finish. The Browns, when you look at their stats, P.J. Walker, 18 for 34. He threw 2 interceptions, very critical picks as well, too. Bad interceptions as well. He got sacked twice, but I would say the player of the game yesterday was and has to be Jerome Ford because Jerome Ford set up the final field goal that got the Browns the lead. And he was just a really, really savvy player yesterday. And Kareem Hunt, finally came to life and had some big key runs, even including a touchdown yesterday as well, too. The only touchdown for the Browns as well. And I would say Amari Cooper had himself a game. He was one of the better receivers in all of the NFL yesterday, and it only took 4 catches for him to go over 100 yards. He had 108 yesterday, and he had a 58-yard catch that was very instrumental in the Browns getting that key touchdown that helped them get to the victory in this game. And Njoku was pretty good as well, too. And I would say this, the defense was really stepped it up. Taki was awesome. Greg Newsome had a brilliant game as well, too. Myles Garrett kept a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. And then you also had Koromoa have himself a game as well, too. These guys, they balled out. They played the right type of game that you're supposed to play for you to win these type of games. The Browns knew that they were inept offensively coming into the game, so they had to make it an ugly defensive game, and that's exactly what they did. And to the Purdy haters, I know that you guys feel like you got to one-up and he's ordinary, he's this, that, and the third, but you have to understand he's Brad Johnson, he's Trent Dilfer, he's all those quarterbacks that were very, good with very great teams, and they're not there to be the star of the team. They're there to manage the team. And that's exactly what Brock Purdy does. He's the best game manager in the NFL. And believe it or not, Tom Brady is called the GOAT, but he was the best game manager in the NFL literally the 20 years he was in the league. It's not about who can throw the ball 80 yards down the field. It's not about who threw for 50 touchdowns a season. It's about guys who can put their team in positions to win every game that they're in. And we don't have, and every quarterback in the NFL is not capable of doing that. So props to Brock Purdy for at least getting your team to the finish line. They just didn't finish. And props to the Browns for not giving into the hype of the 49ers, not being intimidated, not letting the 49ers walk into Cleveland Browns Stadium, which is now the First Energy Stadium, and letting them think that they could just run their house. They had a squabble in the first before the game even started. That motivated the Browns even more to make sure they got this victory. Because look, everybody who was a key part except for McCaffrey that was in that brawl all had to go sit out for a bit. Debo was lost for the game, and it was just real critical on how this team responded, and they responded very well. They showed that their biggest strength is their defense, but they also showed one of their other strengths is being a very tough team, and that's exactly what helped them get the win yesterday. And the Browns moved to 3-2, while the 49ers moved to 5-1, and both move on to next week. The Browns have a game against the Colts on the road, while the San Francisco 49ers travel to Minnesota for a Monday Night Football matchup with the Vikings. So with that, let's move forward and get into our next, and that's going to be the Commanders bounce back hand Falcons' first loss at home with a 24-16 win. The Falcons were so good at home coming into this game. They had some really, really good moments at home. They played really good football at home. They did exactly what they wanted to do at home. They're a team that struggles on the road. But them at home, they've been absolutely special. You know what I mean? They had a great game last week with a great win over Houston. The week prior, they had an exciting comeback win over the Green Bay Packers, and then they blew out the Carolina Panthers week 1. But yesterday, you just had the feeling that the Commanders were going to come into that game, and they were going to dominate. The Commanders were fresh off of having some big issues against the Bears 10 days prior to this when they played them on Thursday Night Football, and they wound up saying, you know what, we got to chin up and get into this game and get to this team early, and that's exactly what happened. Sam Howell didn't overdo it this week. He didn't even throw for 200 yards. He threw for 151 yards, had 3 touchdowns, and that's exactly what the doctor ordered. You didn't need to have a big stats game here against Atlanta. You just needed to get scores, and that's exactly what happened. But the defense had their job, very good job by the defense. Even though they allowed more yards than you would want them to, most of those yards wound up being junk yards because at the end of the day, they were up 24-3 at one point, and then they were up 24-9 at one point. So they really dominated the game as the game went along, And then, it was a late push for the Falcons, but it just wasn't enough at the end of the day. You know what I mean? The Falcons were able to get a late touchdown, make the game a little interesting in the fourth quarter, but they were dominated throughout the game. They truly were, because when you look at when Atlanta was able to get 14 unanswered, that's really what defined the whole game in a sense. And I can see that, when you look at the way these teams are going, you just knew that Atlanta was in for it tough, because Atlanta really did not play a team as good as the Commanders at home when you really look at it, because the Packers are still a work in progress. Come on, the Panthers, they're hapless. And once again, the Texans are another work in progress. The Commanders have a very good offensive coordinator who was going to make sure that they had the right plays in place. He threw out all the stuff that was too hard for this offense to really deal with, and then threw in the simple stuff. And that's exactly how it looked yesterday. And that's why you got a cookie cutter win just like this one, doing things pretty easy. That's all it was. And when you look at the numbers here, you say, damn, Desmond Ridder had himself a really good game. But all in all, it still resulted in a loss. He had a 66.5 QBR. He threw for 307 yards, but threw 3 interceptions, had 2 touchdowns, and was sacked 3 times. Bijan Robinson was pretty much shut down, 37 rushing yards yesterday. And then what he had to do when it came to the passing game, he had 5 receptions, 43 yards. So all in all, he had about 80 yards in total for himself. That's not good for Bijan Robinson, who they looking to get a quarter of the group's yardage. And crazy part is Atlanta had 402 total yards and still lost this game yesterday. They had 12 more first downs than the Commanders, but they still lost this game. Why? Because they turned over the ball too much, and because their quarterback couldn't stay upright. So at the end of the day, all that didn't matter. You had 13 more minutes of time possession as well, too. Mistakes really killed the Falcons yesterday. The Commanders took advantage of it. Now they move on to being 3-3, while you have this Falcons team that moves on to 3-3 as well, too. And they're both exactly who they are. They're middling teams in the NFL, but they both have opportunities to sneak into the playoffs still, as the season goes along. But I'll keep it real with you. The Falcons are still developing something here. The Commanders kind of feel like they might have found something. They got the play caller that can put them in position to be a playoff team. I don't believe it so much with the Falcons at this point. Even though this was a team that was really attractive to win the South, it's just, no, I don't think so. I just think that it's going to be a tough ride for this team, because they couldn't get it done at home the way that they've been doing it, and they just couldn't cut it on. And it seems like when Ridder has a big game throwing-wise, the team is struggling, and that's not good. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But there's just a lot of things they need to fix in Atlanta right now. And the Commanders, good bounce-back win. You needed it. You know that a lot of things went wrong against Chicago. So they were able to fix those things and get the win home. That's all they needed to do. They didn't need to have a great stat night. They just needed to get the win. That's it. And that's exactly what they did. All right, so we move forward. Let's go ahead and jump into our next topic, and this is going to be the Bengals back to 500 record after grueling 17-3 win over the Seahawks. This game was one of the better games in the NFL yesterday. It was a game that a lot of people were excited about the outcome of it, and saying, that pretty much, these teams are pretty much cultivating their path to the playoffs right now. But the Bengals, it's going to be tough. The Bengals are 3-2 right now, but they're still in last place in the North. It's crazy, because that division, everybody's 3-2 or 4-2, like the Ravens right now. So pretty much they're on the oddballs out, because they're 0-2 in the division. But let's break down this game. Joe Burrow did not have the greatest game yesterday, was sacked a few times, but Joe Burrow was able to do enough to get them the win yesterday. Geno Smith is another quarterback, just like Desmond Ridder, had himself a big game with 300 yards, 323 yards at that, threw 2 interceptions, was sacked 4 times. This wound up being detrimental towards them winning the game because Geno could not convert for this team when they got into the red zone yesterday. How do you throw for that much and get no touchdowns yesterday? And you threw picks and you guys still lost by 4 points and you only managed to get 13 points. This is bad quarterback play. Yes, you got a lot of stats. Yes, you got the numbers that you needed to validate something in your contract. But at the end of the day, though, you didn't do enough to help your team win this game. They were in position to actually blow out the Bengals, and the blown opportunities wound up being exactly what motivated the Bengals to win this game. And that was absolutely just something that they have to fix at practice. They have to start simplifying things and making things a lot more easier for the overall basis of the group, because it's great that you can get the ball 60 yards down the field, and then when you get to the 10 yards out, you stall out. It's just, what is going on? And it's like Geno is very ineffective when it comes to the run. He's very ineffective when it comes to throwing in distress, all that stuff. He's such a programmed quarterback, and he plays like how every backup ever plays. You're going to be good for a few games, but you're not going to be the consistent constant that we need at the quarterback position. I truly do feel that Pete Carroll may need to go and make the switch and go ahead and go get the young boy Drew Lock out there to play quarterback. Now, when it comes to the Bengals, I told you that they're slow cookers. Now they're starting to cook. They're starting to put it together, but it still don't look good. Joe Burrow is still dealing with that injury. It's just a little bit better. And guys are stepping it up, being better. But he got sacked 3 times yesterday, had a QBR of 88.4. He only threw for 185 yards on 24 out of 35. He completed under 70% of his passes yesterday as well, too. So he wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. He's getting better. But this will not be enough to really win this division this year. It won't, because I'll keep it real. The Seahawks let you off the hook because their quarterback couldn't convert the big plays. It's that simple. He provided them with 1 touchdown and was able to get them 2 more field goals after that. They were in the red zone 6 times. You got to do better than that. You got to do way better than that. So at the end of the day, this is going to be a very good lesson for the Seahawks and the Bengals moving forward. The Bengals showed that they can have a game where they can get into a little bit of trouble on the defensive end, but they'll be good enough to close out when they need to on these drives. And Seattle showed us that they're a team that really does need to simplify things and make things a lot more easier on themselves and get their stars more involved. It's that simple. It's that simple. But all in all, one of the best games of the day, one of the best games of the week. And Cincinnati won this game in fine fashion. And you know what? Nothing but props to them. They did the damn thing. And, with that, we move forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the Dolphins, what they did yesterday. The Dolphins went ahead and continued their dominance at home, blowing out the winless Panthers 42-21. That was absolutely ridiculous because they spotted them 14 points. They spotted them 14 points and then wound up beating them 42-21. So that means that they outscored them 42-7 the moment they went down 14-0. And the funny thing was they scored 28 points in like a blink. And pretty much they wanted they seemed like they wanted to try some things out. You know what I mean? And I just think that what happened was the Panthers came out with a lot of momentum. They were very excited about getting the game going because they had a great practice last week. You could tell the team had a great practice coming into the game. And then what happens when you're a bad team, you get a little cute and you feel like you're about to probably upset a team today that doesn't see an upset coming. Miami is the type of team where their coach is constantly making adjustments, and he makes the right adjustments at the right time. If anybody can come back from a deficit in this league in a quick manner, it's the Miami Dolphins. And they've proven this time and time again. They're probably one of the more potent scoring teams of the last 5 years. And everybody wants everybody to be on steroids on the offensive end, but it's tough to do it. But the one team that's able to pretty much keep it going is the Dolphins. The Dolphins, when you look at their numbers, they dropped 42 yesterday, right? They dropped 31 the week before. They dropped 70. They dropped 36 opening day. This team is the only team that you can call out that has went over 30 other than the 49ers 4 times. And it's just absolutely ridiculous that this team keeps doing this. And I'm pretty much looking at all the numbers, and I'm really like, we're not talking about Tua enough. We truly aren't. Tua is playing absurd right now. Tua should be on everybody's list as the MVP. But in reality, though, I know it's a quarterback's award now. But in reality, the reward should go to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the most impactful player in the NFL right now. If you take away Tyreek from Tua right now and you look at the stats, if you take away him on the stats wise, there's he only has 1,000 yards. 814 of the yards that he's thrown for this year have been provided because he has Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is an absolute monster. 6 touchdowns on the season, 42 receptions. He's averaging 135 yards per game. There is no doubt in my mind that this man is the MVP of the NFL, because when you say most valuable player, if you take Tyreek Hill off the field, Miami is not that effective of a team. It's just that simple. But they have such a great offense that, everybody looks really good. But this one little player can make everything that much easier for you. And that's exactly what I'm seeing here with Miami. And they're getting great effort from Mostert as well, too. The veteran, 11 touchdowns on the season. He's ran for 429 yards himself. So that's pretty crucial in itself as well, too. But when you really look at everything and you really put everything in perspective, this is the Tyreek Hill show, straight up. And yesterday there was no question about it. The moment that he scored the touchdown, just wrap the game up. Just go ahead and put him in the cellophane, because this one is done. And that's exactly how it looked yesterday. And once again, they just blew a team out and pretty much just, who's next? And that's exactly how Miami's been dealing with teams all season. They're averaging 37.2 a game. This is incredible. This is just silly how good this team is. But in all, if it's the same effect Marshall Faulk had on the Rams. It's where if you take this guy out the lineup, things can be you'll be very basic. But when you have him in the lineup, everybody looks like a Pro Bowler, because they can get to where they need to get to without having to work too hard, because Tyreek makes it that much easier on everybody. And it's really not hard to see that. And truly right now, if I have to say who's the real MVP of this team, it's going to be Mike McDaniels. But when you look at it and you say who's bringing the most impact, it's Tyreek Hill. But the leadership of Tua really is the reason why they're still here and why they're balling 5-1 and pretty much have now became the best team in the AFC as we speak for now, because they really still haven't played much. When you look at the schedule, you say to yourself, okay, your Chargers win, that's a good win right there. Then you look at this win right here, you beat up on a Panthers team that's drafting in the top 10 next year. All right, you beat up on a Giants team, they're drafting in the top 10. You beat up on a Broncos team, they're drafting in the top 10. The list goes on and on in that situation, right? When you think about it. Because they're a great team, but you have to still factor in who they played. Oh, you can add the Patriots to that. But in the 2 games they played against possible playoff teams, the games were a little bit tougher. They got blew out by the Bills, and literally they needed the last-second touchdown to beat the Chargers. So there's still a lot of questions about this team moving forward. But all in all, they had a great game yesterday. When you look at the numbers, they were absolutely incredible. To another 262 yards passing, and then winds up throwing another 3 touchdowns as well, too. So that's just incredible. And then Mozart gets his 115 yards on the ground, and, Tyreek gets 163 receiving, and it's just another day at the park. You know what I mean? And you look at the Panthers numbers, you say to yourself, well, Bryce did well. He got sacked 4 times again, but he was able to throw a touchdown. He threw no interceptions. He went 23 for 38. He went 217, and he led some pretty good drives to start the game off. Also, Adam Thielen had another really good game. Adam Thielen could bring some assets for the Panthers if they do decide to trade him. But if I'm the general manager, the head coach, you don't trade Adam Thielen because you still are developing Bryce, and you need to give him a go-to guy to bring him the confidence that he needs to be a great quarterback in this league. So pretty much with that, 42-21, the Dolphins win another game. They're 5-1. They're looking good. They don't look like there's any slowing down here, but you do look at the schedule and you tell yourself things are going to get a little tougher as we move along. They got the Eagles coming up Monday night. Panthers, on the other hand, the Panthers are getting more and more desperate, and they most likely will be looking much better in their next game, because this one right here, it hurt. I know it hurt because you had a lead, you lost that lead, then you got absolutely crushed after that. So, you know what? There's something that you can look at. You can evaluate the way you played in the first 18 minutes of the game and tell yourself, we need to do that for another 42 minutes straight up. You know what I mean? So it is what it is at the end of the day. And pretty much that's going to be a wrap on that game right there. Now, let's go ahead and talk about some afternoon games. And we had the Lions, and the Lions keep it rolling on the road to improve to 5-1. Overall, 5-1 overall, beating the Bucs 20-6, and I'm kind of heartbroken over that because I had the Bucs heavy yesterday. I thought the Bucs were going to absolutely crush on the Lions yesterday because they were wearing the creamsicle jerseys. They were playing an afternoon game, which usually favors them. And then I thought that possibly they would just go ahead and just be the tougher team here. But wound up, they weren't any of that yesterday. The Detroit Lions are for real. They are 5-1 right now, and they are 3-0 on the road. I'm going to repeat that for the fellas in the back. They are 3-0 on the road. That is absolutely tremendous right now when you think about that, because the Lions, that was really their pet peeve, is being a bad road team. And pretty much they've went on the road and they've absolutely crushed it. They had a real issue winning on the road for about a good 3 years, but now they're winning every game on the road. They've beaten Kansas City in a hostile environment. They've beaten Green Bay in a hostile environment. Then they come into this one and they beat up on Tampa Bay in another hostile environment. This team is serious. This team is real. This team is ready for the big time. They are doing it right now. And another guy who can say he's an MVP candidate, well, he won't say it, but I'll say it for him. Jared motherfucking Goff. I'm telling you right now. How you feel now today, Sean McVay? You got yourself a quarterback with a terrible back that does nothing but get sacked when he's not, when he's not throwing interceptions. But, all in all, he's still a great quarterback. He threw for 5,000 yards one time. But he did get you a Super Bowl, but that's still a Super Bowl that Jared Goff could have won. And Jared Goff is just proving all the naysayers wrong, that he was the number one pick for a reason. The guy that they swore was better than him coming out of the draft, Carson Wentz, who went second, isn't even in the league anymore. But Jared Goff is still here killing it. And he's turned the Detroit Lions in from a joke of a team, a joke of a franchise, into America's team. Sorry, Dallas. Everybody's in love with the Detroit Lions right now. Every time you look up, somebody's talking about Dan Campbell. Somebody's talking about the Motor City Boys. Somebody's bringing up something about this Detroit team because they love everything that's going on with this team. Amon St. Brown, the the underdog himself, the guy that was literally passed over by 14 different teams in the NFL to get to this point of his career where he's absolutely top 5 receivers, no question about it. If you know who this guy was since USC, this shouldn't be a surprise to you. Then you have David Montgomery in his revenge mode. They said that he was washed coming out of Detroit, coming out of Chicago. He's absolutely been killing it lately. And then you got guys like you got the Reynolds you got those guys. They're absolutely killing it as well too. Reynolds was a guy that was from the Rams that was one of Jared Goff's favorite targets. They went ahead and brought Josh Reynolds in. He's been an absolute gem for this team. Also, Laporta replaced Hawkinson in effortless form in a sense. But the biggest thing about this Detroit team is Aiden Hutchinson in the defense. That defense is incredible. Aiden Hutchinson's playing lights out. He reminds me of a young Howie Long. They're doing some great things there in Detroit, but it's still a long season for this team. And we know that they're a team that you can't praise too hard because you don't want them to get comfortable. And this is why they're playing good football, because they're not comfortable right now. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But right now, Detroit is in my top 3 when it comes to the rankings of teams in the NFL. I'll say this right now. Detroit, number 3. Number 2 is Miami. And then I still have to put number 1 as the San Francisco 49ers. Even with that loss yesterday, we know that there were little things that happened to the Niners yesterday that did put Cleveland over the top to win that game. But we all know that if you don't miss the kick, nobody's talking about anything but the 49ers, how good they are. Period, point blank, how they played one of their worst games and still came out with the victory. And that's really what it is right now. But at the end of the day, the Detroit Lions are playing some of the best football we've seen in years. And this is fun to watch. And I can't wait to see them next week. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But this is fun. It's a lot of fun. And we move forward from there. All right, now we have a game where it absolutely went to the left for the Eagles, but hey, it is what it is. It's the NFL. Eagles shocked by Jets, losing first game of the season 20-14 at MetLife, and it was the first time in franchise history they ever lost to the Jets. They played the Jets 12 times and never lost to them, and absolutely, shit the bed yesterday. And I swear, the Eagles really were looking like a team that was about to blow out the Jets yesterday. But you know what? Something just struck in the Jets' head that they wasn't going to lay down in this game. The crowd got into the game, and it was Rap City from there. Zach Wilson had himself a pretty decent game. I know that a lot of people will be, well, he only led him to field goals. But when you think about it like this, he led him to 4 field goals. What if 2 of those were touchdowns? With the touchdown that he had late. So he had him in the red zone 5 times. So that means he had him in the red zone more times than Jalen Hurts had his squad in the red zone. Think about that. Jalen Hurts is the one that you're saying is an MVP candidate, offensive player of the year candidate, all that good stuff. He looked like none of that yesterday. Jalen Hurts, this is the problem that I have with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a very, very good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. Jalen Hurts has been very lucky to be a part of some of the best units you could be a part of. Alabama, pretty much the creme de la creme of college football. Oklahoma, the quarterback who was the quarterback university for 6-7 years straight with Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts himself. And then it kind of ended with Spencer Rattler and his situation. But then Caleb Williams was able to jump in there as well, too. So it's been a good carousel of quarterbacks over there at Oklahoma. And then he gets to play for the Eagles, who were built up to be a great team, but just have a good quarterback to lead them to victories, not to be a quarterback that has to ad-lib and do extra things like the Justin Herberts of the world or like the Lamar Jacksons of the world. You're not asking him to do that. You're asking him to be a great game manager. And what happens when he can't manage the game and you got to make him ad-lib? Then he gets really average. He gets really shaky. Those 4 turnovers yesterday prove my point that when you needed him to be a great quarterback, he just couldn't do it because it's not in him. He's a great system quarterback. And I know Eagles fans are going to give me the blues about this because they'll say, oh, because this, that, and the third, why are you doubting him? It's only one game. It's not only one game. It's just a game. It's just a game that was able to finally prove that he's living off the talent of the team. The team is, it doesn't really matter. You could throw Marcus Mariota out there and you're still going to probably get the same exact results because the team is already set to win. That's the whole thing. He's not the reason he's not putting them over the top. He's just adding into the situation to help the execution. Yes, he's a great leader. But when it comes down to the intangibles of being a great quarterback, he's not it. He's a good soldier. Being a good soldier does not mean that you are a general. And that's exactly what I saw yesterday. Devonta Smith has been absolutely shackled because of a disagreement with A.J. Brown. Now the guy has to favor A.J. Brown, and he can't get the same rapport going with Devonta that he had in the first few weeks, where if he looks downfield, Devonta's 10 yards ahead, he can throw him a 70-yard bomb. No, it's after A.J. Brown blew up on Monday Night Football, the whole structure of the game plan has changed. And that goes back to that sorry-ass coach, Nick Sirianni. And I'm going to keep saying he's a sorry coach because he is. And pretty much you have the most talented team in the NFL and you're wasting them because you are trying to play Legos with them instead of just going ahead and running the right game plans. When they run their right game plans where it's all about being physical and strong, they are hard to beat. But when you look at the way that the Jets have set themselves up, the Jets are playing with the Rocky Balboa mentality that it's us against the world. Nobody's giving us a chance. Our quarterback is not that good. Our offense is okay. Our defense is stellar. But how long can our defense stay on the field? Their defense has told us they'll give up 14 to 21 points. That's it. But if they can get the offense to get them 20 points or better, the Jets are in every game. That's exactly what happened yesterday. So with that, this was one of the best games of the season yesterday. And I know people will say, oh, it was ugly. It was a great chess match. It was a great battle. And the Jets showed that if you go in there and you get physical with the Eagles, that you can make them honest. But when you go up in there playing patty cake with them, it's tough. And another thing that was significant was that Jalen Carter was out. And Jalen Carter is now proven to be a significant piece to this Eagles defense at the end of the day. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But all in all, great win for the Jets. They moved to 3-3. They are still in the thick of things after everybody had pretty much said their season was over. That's why you don't give away seasons. It's why you don't say seasons are over after week 5. You're just stupid when you say that because no season is over until a team loses their 8th game or their 9th game. Okay? Hold the faith, hold the line. That's all I can say. And the Jets right now, they don't care what you're talking about. They're going to take care of their business. So with that, let's go ahead and get to our final game, which is going to be the Sunday night football game. And the Sunday night football game, the Bills sneak out of Sunday night football with the close win over the Giants 14-9. This was a really good game. Okay. This was a very good game. The Giants played their best possible game of the season. This was the first game where they didn't give up more than 20 points. It was the first game of the season where they really sat in there and they played some really locked-in defense, but their offense was absolutely just terrible last night. But they were able to get some things going late in that game last night. Saquon Barkley was able to break off 2 35-yard runs in a row that got them in position to literally win the game. And they wound up They wound up having a few chances there at the end. They got a pass interference called at the 1 yard line with no time left on the clock. And then, Tyrod Taylor thought that he had a touchdown with Waller. Waller drops the ball in the end zone. Game over. It's that simple. But all in all, the Bills looked absolutely atrocious last night. The Bills had good moments, but then they just kept getting stuck on offense and getting moved off the field. And that's exactly what happened. Now, the Giants were already inept offensively going into the game. They didn't have Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones not being there proved pretty key because Daniel Jones is able to move his feet. Daniel Jones is able to get the yardage that they needed. Now, honestly, y'all gonna laugh at me, but they would have won the game last night if Daniel Jones was the quarterback because this game served up its purpose for him. They played defense last night and they put themselves in position to win the game. And he's not scared to run the ball. So in that final play, I know that he would have probably checked out to something different, or he would have just handed the ball to Saquon, or he would have rolled it out and ran it in himself. That's that simple of a play for him. And I think that Tyrod wanted to be a hero last night, and that's why he wound up throwing the ball to Waller because he thought he was about to steal somebody's job, and that ain't the case. Because the thing is, Daniel Jones gets paid way too much to be sitting on the bench, and it's that simple. He was hurt last night, but when he says he's healthy, he'll be back in the starting lineup. It's that easy to see. Josh Allen still playing great football, but I really wish Josh Allen could have been a little better last night. But the New York Giants defense played like their jobs were on the line last night, and that's something that you can really respect. Now, when you look at the numbers of this game, you got the Bills who had 22 first downs to the Giants 20. The Giants were 10 for 19 on third down efficiency, but they were 1 for 2 on fourth downs, and that was key in them almost winning this game. And guess what? They also outgained the Buffalo Bills last night and only scored 9 points. And this is just incredible because they were able to have more passing yards than them last night and more rushing yards than them last night. And they ran 14 more plays, but this still wasn't good enough to win the game. And they were able to turn over the ball twice on them as well, too. But those 3 sacks really did prove pretty vital towards the game as well, too. So it was just a very good learning lesson. And if I'm the New York Giants, let's not just throw away the season yet. Let's not say the season's over because it's technically not over. Yes, you've lost your last 4 in a row. But you got Washington coming in next week. You got the Jets coming in the week after. Then you go to Vegas to play the Raiders. Then you got a game against a vulnerable Cowboys team. We'll keep it real. The Cowboys are vulnerable in that game because they'll have the idea they already beat the Giants 40-0. So you know what? We'll probably beat them 40-0 again. We're at home. But it doesn't work like that. And then you have another game with Washington on the 19th. And then you have New England, and then you have a bye. So I'm looking at their next 6 games, and they could possibly go 4-2 in this group. Just think about that. Or 5-1. Just think about that. The Giants can put this thing together. I saw a lot of things with Jalen Hyatt last night that excited me that if you can get him involved in this offense, this team can be a very, very strong team moving forward. So with that, this was one of the better games of the season, probably the best game on Sunday Night Football all year long because it was absolutely must-see TV. Even though the score says it wasn't, it still was must-see TV because you know that everybody always has an opinion, and they should have gave Saquon the damn ball at the 1 yard line. That's all I got to say. I know a lot of people are still griping about the possible hold that happened on the goal line that could have led to another pass interference. But let me tell you this, they only give you 1 pass interference. And when it's no time on the clock left, they're not going to throw a flag unless he absolutely mauled the dude, and he didn't. And I'm going to keep it real. Waller had all opportunity to catch that ball, okay? If you didn't have the opportunity to catch the ball, then I understand. But he had a hand on the ball. You have a hand on the ball. That means you need to catch the ball. It's that simple. That's always been the rule, and it is what it is at the end of the day. So we move on. We're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break. And when I get back, we're going to jump into some baseball. We're going to jump into the NBA preview for the Warriors. And we're also going to get into Tyszu winning his first world title as well, too. So you guys stay tuned. This is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the PrimeTime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Captains.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners and I'll Have Another and Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
Tune into Big Wave Boxing every week with a brand new guest with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Captain, getting the best boxing stories, best boxing angles, and the truth when it all comes down to the sweet science. Tune in to Big Wave Boxing on the Prime Wave Media channel on YouTube.
All right, we're back with the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. So let's go ahead and jump into our first game. It's going to be the Rangers win game one at ALCS with another shutout, beating Astros 2-0. And you know what? We do have another game going in the next 30 minutes or so. Yep, they're playing in the next 30 minutes. And that game is going to be in Houston as well, too. So you guys get ready for that one. That's going to be game 2 today. And I'll have the bets ready for you in a second. But yesterday, very good game. You know, Montgomery, who it's a funny story with Montgomery. Montgomery was with the Yankees, and he gets sent to the Cardinals for, Bader. Bader really didn't do much this year with the Yankees, and Montgomery then signs up with the he went from the Cardinals, and then he gets traded again to the Rangers, and he comes in and he's an absolute gem for the Rangers after having such a lowly time in St. Louis this year. St. Louis was bad for everybody that was there this year, but if you got out of St. Louis, it was pretty good for you, and he brought that mentality with him that's been helpful for this Texas Rangers team as well, because he gave them the boost that they needed. Everybody thought it was going to be Scherzer who was going to be putting them over the top because he's this Hall of Fame pitcher and all that good stuff, but it wasn't Scherzer. It was Montgomery, and yesterday was a proven point. Montgomery went out there and pitched absolutely marvelous. He was dedicated to the grind last night, and it paid off. It's that simple. It paid off in big dividends, and they were able to get themselves the win there last night, and everybody goes home happy. It's that simple. Everybody goes home happy. So, we got all these great things that we have in store, and pretty much we have a very, very fun group that is really, just playing with house money. They know that they're not supposed to be here. They know that they're playing above expectations at this point. And you know what? They don't care, because at the end of the day, that's what they did. They've spent the money to bring in guys to get them to this level. They didn't know if it was going to be this quick, but they're here. And it's that, and there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I told a lot of people, if they were willing to get off and go off, that you had to watch out for them. And this was the Rangers. I knew it was a wide open year in the American League, and they got the perfect target in the Astros. Now, the Astros, on the other hand, we know what the Astros bring to the table. The Astros losing the first game of a series is not a big deal. It truly isn't. They proved to us that, you know what, it's a series that you have to win 4 games in. It's about who wins 4 games first. It's not about who wins game 1. But, yesterday, that one right there, that can mess with you a little bit because you got no runs yesterday. You got 5 hits, but you got no runs yesterday. And that's a little embarrassing, but it's okay because one was a CNI single and then another was a solo home run. You just couldn't get much going yesterday. Now, Montgomery, he sat down 6 guys yesterday. But after that, it became really tough because their bullpen absolutely shut down the Rangers. The Rangers were absolutely no hit for the next 4 innings, and it just was not good for this team. And Verlander, he pitched well, but he didn't get any run support. He threw 101 pitches, struck out 5, walked 2, gave up 2 earned runs, and gave up 6 hits yesterday. He got nothing from his group. And literally, you look at this and how many guys they left on base. They left 6 guys on base. It just was not a regular Astros game. And that's because Texas is coming in with adrenaline. They're coming in hot. They're coming in feeling good about themselves. And guess what? They didn't have to travel. They had to just come up from Arlington and come play Houston. And that's exactly how it looked. That one team that has been moving as that didn't have to go far, and you had another team that we just got done beating another division champion who was tough, and now we got to come back up in here and play these guys. And you get to this moment, and it's just damn, it's just tough. And as the playoffs go, it gets tougher and tougher. And everybody should know that there are no guarantees. You're not entitled to championships. And I don't know how many times I have to tell this to people. So with that, we move forward. Let's go ahead and jump into our NLCS Game 1, and that's going to be the Diamondbacks at the Phillies. I know we did the preview the other day, but this is me breaking down the actual game. You got Zach Gallen, who's pitching tonight for the Diamondbacks, and then for the Phillies, you do have Zach Wheeler on the mound. These are 2 of the better pitchers in the National League going at it. They're 2 of the better pitchers that in the playoff right now going at it as well, too. And these are 2 of the hottest lineups in the playoffs as well, too. This game is must-see TV. Let's keep it real. And you have a very good player for the Diamondbacks that everybody needs to be ready to really get to know a lot better, and that's Corbin Carroll. And then you have the Phillies with Bryce Harper. So this is going to be exciting because these are 2 guys that play the game of baseball the way that the game of baseball is supposed to be played. And that's where we get back the great matchups of the fall in baseball. That's exactly what fall has been missing in baseball. Names that people can attach to the faces. And that's exactly what is happening now. The Diamondbacks and Phillies have a good pop culture series for later on in life because they got a lot of characters on both teams. I feel like the X factor, though, on each side, each team's going to have an X factor. I feel like the X factor for the Diamondbacks is going to be Christian Walker. And then I feel like the X factor for the Phillies is going to be JT Realmuto. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a great series. I truly do feel that tonight, the Diamondbacks bring that hot streak up in here, and they go ahead and they get number 6 in a row and go ahead and beat the Phillies tonight. I'm not saying that, and I already got them winning the series, but I'm not saying that they're going to go to Philly and win both games. I'm just saying tonight they just shake the card a little bit because we know the Phillies look like the lock. They look like the sure thing. This is the team that I got to bet on because they look like they're going to win. And I'm going to keep it real with you. Those are the games where you say, you know what? If you're me, I'll go ahead and I'll pass on the favorite. Give me the dog in this game. Even if I just want the dog because I feel like the dog is going to bark tonight. That's all I feel like. And, Phillies could have been a dog. I would have took them. Diamondbacks a dog. I would have took them. But Diamondbacks was a dog. So I'm taking them tonight. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to see how it shakes out. But this is a great game. I look forward to it. And I hope you do the same. So let's go ahead and jump into our next topic, and that's going to be the NBA. In our NBA preview today, we got the Golden State Warriors, a team that's won 4 championships in the last 7 years. They have been the standard of what the NBA has been here in the later half of the decade. It all was about LeBron and the Heat in the first half, and then it became about Curry Thompson and Draymond and the others as well too, the Splash Brothers and the Goon, and these guys have done their absolute best to keep the NBA as a top sport. You got to have teams that are marketable. And one thing I can say about the Warriors, even though I always have my hangups with them, they're a very marketable team. They got a lot of good things going on with their team, and they bring in Chris Paul this year. They let go of Jordan Poole. He was part of that trade to bring in Chris Paul. They got Jonathan Kuminga there still as well. James Wiseman is gone as well now too. But, they still got Moody as well. So those 4 rookies that they had a few years back that they thought they were going to be able to build this team around, they only got 2 now. And pretty much they're really carbon copy of what the Lakers have done. The Lakers, they tried to do a youth movement, and the youth movement just didn't happen. LeBron came, and he wasn't having that, okay? And then, they tried to bring in all LeBron's buddies, all the guys that LeBron had played in the NBA with for the last 10, 15 years. That didn't work either. Now they're doing the same thing with Steph Curry. You're bringing in guys like Rudy Gay. You're bringing in Chris Paul. These to help try to get these guys their first championship, but to have more veteran presence on your team so people can keep it together during these games. That's the whole thing. They didn't have enough voices. Iguodala is a guy that can really show you more than he can tell you, and he hasn't been able to do that in the last 2 years. So they don't have that option right now with him. So you bring in Rudy Gay to kind of replace that. Then you bring in Chris Paul. So then you can go ahead and trade off injuries. Chris Paul missed 5, Curry missed 5. But you still got a consistent point guard at the top. That's the whole thing. And you're just looking at the health of your team. And that's why they're making these moves like that. Steve Kerr has to show us this year, is he truly a great coach? Because the way that he coaches in the Olympics kind of proved to everybody that he's an average coach who has great players, exceptional players. But Curry and Thompson and Draymond and the rest of the group, they still would have been able to win championships with Mark Jackson as their head coach. It just was that Steve Kerr was the right guy at the right time. And you know what? They needed to hear another voice because Mark Jackson was coaching them like a high school coach. You know what I mean? He was coaching them like your preacher daddy, and it just didn't work. And so pretty much now Steve Kerr gets all the credit. He gets all the accolades and everything like that for just being an average coach and just telling them simple things to help them win championships. And you can even argue that Mike Brown and Luke Walton might need more credit for the years that they actually coached up those teams that were some of the best teams to ever play in the regular season. Luke was the coach for 80% of the games when they won 73 games. So, all this, Kerr is one of the legends. Kerr is just a person that it's about circumstances, and the circumstances favored him in the process. But was he going to do the same thing with the Thunder? Was he going to do the same thing with the Wizards? Was he going to do the same thing with the Hawks? Hell no, because he's not that type of coach. He's good for if you have something already. And that's what happened in Phoenix when he was the president of their team. And that's what happened in Golden State when he became the head coach of their team. So when you look at the Warriors, you say to yourself, the Warriors chasing championships should not be even brought to the forefront this year because they don't look like a championship team. They have the championship mentality. They have the championship players, but they are not a team that is good enough to keep up with the best teams in the West this year, in my opinion. Phoenix is just light years ahead of everybody because they got Booker, Bill, and Durant. Those 3 alone can get you 100 points a night, okay? You always also got the Grizzlies who are going to be pissed off coming back into this year. I don't want to see John Morant. If I'm if I'm opposing guards, the moment he gets back off this 25-game suspension. Okay, he's going to be killing. You still have the Nuggets, who are still the most complete team in the conference, even though you know that there's going to be some kinks in the armor because Bruce Brown was a big, big piece to things, to making it a lot easier for this team. And then you look at the fact that you have a group that is going to be coming off of a championship and their first ever championship. But one thing for the Nuggets that's cool, the Nuggets didn't get the exposure that most world champions get after they win a championship. They won the championship. People celebrated it for like 3 days. They had a ho-hum for like 3 days, and then everybody moved on. So, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal. But if they go back to back, that's different. You know what I mean? So you look at the Warriors and you say to yourself, where do you fit into this? Because the Warriors are in that second tier for the Western Conference with the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Kings. And I think, and they're all in the same division as well, too, except for Phoenix. So they really are dealing with a situation where their division is going to mold them into who they truly are. And we'll see how it goes, but they could win the Pacific or they could finish last in the Pacific. But finishing last in the Pacific doesn't necessarily mean you miss the playoffs. Ask the Lakers. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move forward. I would say this. I got the Warriors going under their win amount this year. I think they're at 53, 54, and I got them going under that. I think that they're a 50-win team or possibly a 48-win team. You know, I think 48 to 50 wins is a good number for the Warriors this year. The Warriors are not going to be a dominant group, but they're going to be a group that when it comes down to certain games and you need a certain bet to get home, they'll probably be a good team to bet on. But I'll keep it real with you. I would stay away from them on the road because they've been absolutely awful on the road the last few years. So that's something that you really do have to look at. And then you have to look at the fact that them playing against certain teams in the Eastern Conference could be a factor into them, you know, getting absolutely cooked in some nights as well, too. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But that's going to be the Warriors preview for you. All right, so we move forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the new world champion, Tim Tyszu. Tim Tyszu, fresh off of winning that WBO 154 title against Brian Mendoza in his home country. The fight was in Australia. It was a monster event in Australia. We already know it was on Sunday. It was during the day of all things as well, too. So it was a big deal in Australia. You know what I mean? It was like a national day. You know what I mean? And Tim Tyszu is a very, very popular fighter in that country, and he was able to prevail again and show that, you know, he's very worthy of a title date with Jermall Charlo. So, you know, there's a lot of things. Jermall Charlo, Mel Charlo, Big Charlo, Twin Charlo, Puppy Chow Charlo, you know, whatever. But, you know, Charlo is still the standard at 154. Let's not play, okay? And Tim Tyszu is a really good fighter. He could be great. But Tim Tyszu knows that you're biting off a little bit more than you can chew fighting against Charlo. But the way that he's going about his business to fight Charlo, you have to respect it. He's very confident that he can beat Charlo. And you know what? His father is very confident that he can beat Zab Judah. So you can't deny the Tyszu bloodline and their hunger to try to win big fights. And that's exactly what he wants to do. He already said he doesn't care about belts. He just wants to fight Charlo. And that's something that fans can get behind because a lot of guys just cherry pick until they have to fight the real guy. And then a lot of times that real guy has already been washed up. He's already been washed up, dried out, and he's just coming for a check. Or when they get to this guy, they've beaten up on so many bums that they can't match that skill level of that superior fighter. They thought they were a superior fighter, but they were really just a really good fighter compared to this superior fighter. You know, kind of sounds like Spence and Crawford, but that's not really the case. That was That fight is a little different. You know what I mean? I think that fight's more about the moment and who rose to the moment and who didn't. Really, in reality, because in a real sense, before we went to that fight, it was 1A and 1B. Let's keep it real. All right, but when it comes down to this, Tim Tszyu has put his hat in the ring pretty much for those fights with Charlo, Crawford, Spence, because you just don't have to do the fight in America. You can do the fight in Australia and make even more money. That's the whole thing. He's an international star. He's attractive. You know what I mean? So Tim Tszyu has really done the right thing with his resume. He's made himself somebody you want to watch. Straight up. People stayed up late to watch Tim Tszyu fight this fight. Tim Tszyu's fight started at almost damn near 11 o'clock in the Cali. I live in Cali. You know what I mean? So that's how, how much you want to watch a Tim Tszyu. You'll stay up and watch Tim Tszyu. You know what I mean? And Tim Tszyu has passed that test. Now he can come back to America after these 2 successful pay-per-views, and then people know who he is. And he said he'll be back in Vegas for a fight. And the idea is he'll be fighting Charlo. And I think that at the end of the day, Charlo does owe him the opportunity to have this fight because he's been chomping at the bit for the last 2 years. He took all the necessary steps to become the mandatory for Charlo. He took all the proper steps to put himself in position to be a marketable fighter in the United States of America. So everything is making a whole lot of sense for Tim Tszyu at this point. And I truly do see another great champion in boxing. He might not be able to get those 3 guys that I mentioned, but he's much better than the rest of them. And right now at 154, after Charlo, who's better? Really, who's better? But if he doesn't get Charlo, I would love to see him get Brian Castano, because beating Brian Castano in a very, I would say in an emphatic fashion would really get people, hyped up for him to fight Charlo. So if he can't get this fight with Charlo, try to get the fight with Brian Castano, the guy who thought he was the best fighter at 154. So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll take our final commercial break. And when I get back, we're going to jump into Talking Tickets. So you guys stay tuned. This is the premier sports betting show, the PrimeTime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper.
Now you and your friends can compete in the sport of kings and win big with Stable Duel. Get the app, pick your horses, and get in on the thrill of horse racing with daily games competing against other players. Bring home the glory and the cash, and move up the annual leaderboard while you leave your competition in the dust. Get in the game with Stable Duel. Play, race, win.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners and I'll Have Another and Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
All right, here we are. Let's go ahead and jump into your favorite subject, my favorite subject, and that's Talking Tickets. Nephew said there Gilbert Arenas was tripping, but Gilbert Arenas is just another bitter, I'll put it up here too. Gilbert Arenas is just another bitter player. That's it. The guy made a lot of money, and they took that money from him very quickly. You know what I mean? Like, literally, like the guy signed the contract, and 3 months later, the Wizards regretted that they signed and they offered him that much money. Guy brings guns in the locker rooms because he doesn't want to pay debts that from a poker game and all this stuff. I'm about that life. You about that life. And then he found out that the other guy really was about that life. Javaris Crittenton is sitting in jail for 25 years of life because he killed a pregnant woman on accident because he did a drive-by when he was in Atlanta pretty much a week after he got cut from the NBA. So, there was a lot of things that went into that. So he said he was saying Hakeem Olajuwon showing guys footwork is outdated. And you know what? At the end of the day, Hakeem can do any damn thing he wants to do. Hakeem is a two-time NBA champion, multiple MVP in the league, 10, 12, 13-time All-Star. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, who cares what Gilbert Arenas has to say? He's doing what a lot of people are doing right now. They're just using their platforms to make sure that they make a lot of noise about something so then they can get the clicks and engagement that gets their views up, gets their time up, and then pretty much, gets their money up. It's all a game, man. That's the way the report game goes. You put a carrot out there, you dangle the carrot, you try to see who's going to grab at that carrot after I say some outlandish bullshit. You know what I mean? It is what it is. It's shock value TV. They have a lot of it now. And I wouldn't call them bitter. I would just call them another person with an opinion. And it's up to you to listen to it or ignore it. It is what it is at the end of the day. But does he have a point? Somewhat. But do I care? No. Should you care? No. Because who the hell normal is going to Hakeem to go get some damn footwork? I know if I had a kid right now who's about to be playing in high school or playing in college that's a superb basketball player, I still wouldn't be taking him over to Hakeem's camp because right now you got to learn how to be an actual functional human being. You know how to play the sport really well, but we got to make sure your brain's there as well too. These kids is acting up. Look up Mikey Williams. You know what I mean? We have to get down to the nitty gritty with these youngsters. You know what I mean? We have to make sure that they understand that there's life outside of sports and that every little thing that they can do can be something that can result in that dream being taken away. We need more of that. We don't need to just talk about it. We need to show examples of it, But all in all, I'm totally getting off the grid right now. Let's jump into this. This is going to be Talkin Tickets. This is going to be good. We got the ALCS Game 2 bets. Astros money line minus 120. Astros minus 1.5 plus 160. The over 4.5 first 5 minus 115. And then we got the Rangers under 3.5 runs a day plus 110 on the total. All right, so we move forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the NLCS Game 1. I got it under 7. I also have the Diamondbacks money line plus 130 for the first 5 innings. I also have the Diamondbacks winning this game by 2 or more runs plus 225 alternate line, just like I like them. I like them when it's that number. So I need a 2 or 3 run win from the Diamondbacks. And then we got the yes run first inning with the plus 100 for this game as well too. So I'm hoping that we get some early runs and then it just stops right there. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it goes, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so we move forward and let's go ahead and jump into our Monday Night Football bets. I got the Chargers, like I said on the show last week, at plus 105. Also have the over 24.5 first half minus 110. Also have the Chargers first quarter plus half a point minus 165. So all we needed to be is a tie, and we can cash that ticket. I got the Chargers on the adjusted line minus 5.5. So I need the Chargers to win this game by a touchdown or better so we can really cash that ticket. And then I got the Elijah Dotson anytime TD plus 375. I think that he's going to be a big factor in tonight's game. I think that once he gets a few carries and he can break out a bit, I think Coach will get the confidence to let him get more touches than he's came across the last few weeks. But he stepped in, and I knew that they're probably going to bring him along slowly because he's a special player, and you want to make sure that you don't wear him down. You want to make sure that you have him at the right time of winning, and that's going to be in November and December. And then the longest touchdown over 40.5 yards. That's going to be the longest touchdown of the game. So all we need is a 41-yard touchdown, and boom, we cash that ticket. So there it is. There it is. That's going to be today's Talking Tickets. And man, I know today was a longer show, but I really thank you guys for being patient with me, watching the show today. I know we had a lot of good stuff that we talked about. We hit a lot of things today as well, too. So I'll be back tomorrow to jump into some Monday Night Football, talk some AP top 25 college football, talk some AP top 25 college basketball as well, too. Also, we got Tuesday night games in college football, so we have those to talk about as well. And then we still got our baseball. And tomorrow we do our preview on the Houston Rockets. So pretty much you guys make sure to tune in. This is the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. And as I always say, bet with your head, not with your heart. The movement is moving, and I am gone.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.